I wanted to circle back to what you're saying about, if you need to keep it simple,
Yeah.
because you end up spending a ton of energy starting and stopping and reconfiguring or whatever. But I think there's another piece to simple, which is something that you say a lot, which is that the confused mind says no. So it's not just like simple for you, but simple for your clients. Because if you're asking people to do a lot of work to figure out what it is you offer, it's so sprawling because you want to give so much, and you have so much to say, and they have a lot of work to do to figure out how exactly they can plug in. You're really shooting yourself in the foot.
And what's interesting is simple doesn't mean not ornate. Simple does not mean not immensely detailed, but it does mean there's a clear pattern to it. Because if you think simple is, look, I got all these different colors of thread and yarn, here you go. Here's a gift, and you give it to somebody who doesn't know what to do with it. That's a mess. That's clutter. And especially if it's not all spooled up. Just here it is all tangled together. Enjoy. There's nothing
Yeah.
to enjoy in that. Versus if you said, now better would be, yeah, here it is all spooled up, the different colors. But even better is, and here's the tapestry I made from it.
Mm.
And they can look at the tapestry, and it's just a very clear pattern.
Mm-hmm.
Might even tell a story. It's a fresco, whatever. You can look at it and you can understand it by seeing it. So that's not ornate. That's
Mm-hmm.
incredibly detailed, but clear. So
Mm-hmm.
the solution to when people say, "Oh, the confused mind says no," so they say, "Oh, so it's got to be kind of simplistic. It's got to be remove all the detail." No, no, it just has to be clear.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference between simplistic and simple. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
my ebook, The Point of View Marketing, I go to great lengths to make this case. Simplistic is that you came back from Burning Man at 19 years old and you're like, hey man, it's all fear or love. That's real simplistic. And then simple is what some indigenous elder has. They might say some of the same things. The difference is if you push them and challenge them, they got more chops and they can actually answer, whereas the 19-year-old collapses at the first question. So similar thing. It's, yeah, you can distill it down to a core message. So for me, it's like marketing can feel good. That's a simple idea, but I got a whole career out of it. I've got over 1,000 videos that basically all say that. Mark Silver, every act of business can be an act of love.
Mm.
Very simple idea, but he's got this whole business built on it. And everything he's doing is saying that. So that's helpful if you can boil it down to a simple message that contains a lot in it. That's very helpful. And I suppose in some ways the message of this particular thing, if we were to boil it down, is something around plan, don't react. Develop a strategy, don't get lost in tactics. There's something like that, and then we're kind of going around the theme. But yes, it's not simple. If people look at your website, here's the test for everyone who's watching. If somebody goes to your website and they can't figure out what you do, they couldn't then go tell a friend, oh, I went to this website and here's what it's about. That's trouble. If they were
Mm-hmm.
confused, I mean, it's worth sitting down next to somebody who's like, what do you think about my website? And what you want is like, oh, that's amazing. This is great. Not, huh. You don't want this confusion, because
Yeah.
that's the end of, and people think, oh, with a sales letter, right? So I need a simple sales letter that means short. That does not mean short. It might mean short. It means clear.
Yes.
And then it might be a 50-page sales letter, that you mail somebody, and it gets incredible results. But why? Because it's clear, not because you said, oh, it's got to be simple, so I make it simplistic. It's not that.
Yeah, and you have 3 seconds. That's the thing. Like when people come to your webpage, once they get there, you have 3 seconds before they decide to stay or go. So sales page can be long, but the top of it needs to be a pow. It
Do,
needs to hit them.
do you think that's true with Instagram as well? That you have about 3 seconds when somebody hits your feed to check you out?
Yeah, I do. I think, yeah, you probably have less for a post. You probably have a second, you know. It's that something compelling, you know.
Well, it strikes me too that if I went to somebody's Instagram feed and I scroll through it, if I just see a bunch of tangled yarn on the ground, it's like, I don't know what this is.
Right.
And I want out, versus if I can see a very clear theme, perhaps aesthetically, it's nice. There's a clear aesthetic to it, but there's also a clear message like, oh, this is all about marketing, or this is all about relationships. This is all
Yeah.
about spirituality, or all about health. There's a theme. I can see that, even if it's a bit of a mosaic effect. But if I can't figure out the theme on your Instagram feed when I get there, I probably won't stick around.
Yeah. And I always encourage people to think about like what are their favorite accounts? Like who do they follow and what do their feeds look like? Because there's the hint is in there that it's probably someone you know exactly what you're getting. And usually, I mean, sure, the messaging is similar from post to post, but I'm a big believer in the aesthetic is similar too. And the only accounts I know of where they have a huge following, but maybe the aesthetic is kind of all over the place, is that they didn't build their following on social media didn't come from social media. It came from a movie or a book or some other place where they have the following and people went to go find them on social media to follow them.
Yeah,
But if you're building from social media, that's in some ways the face of your business. So you have to be as clear on your social media as you are on your website or any other communication. And then I also think like you don't only have to talk about one thing. You can talk about a few things, but you don't want to talk about 10 things. You should probably talk about 4. A lot of marketers talk about the content pillars. So like, let's say that you are a marketing business. So one of your pillars could be marketing, but then the other 3 could be other things that kind of fill out your personality. Maybe it's travel. Maybe it's your niche. There's like Jessica Zweig talks about, okay, so one of her pillars is entrepreneurship, but one of her pillars is women.
interesting.
And then one of her pillars is travel. And then one of them is something else, fashion. I don't know. But it helps people get to know her, which is another thing that social media can do for you in your business that maybe there's not enough time and space to do that on your website, or doesn't make total sense to do that on your website. You can do that in social media and show people your life and give them the inside scoop. And because at the end of the day, if you are a solopreneur, you really are selling who you are, because a million people probably do what you do unless you offer this super nichey thing. A million people probably do what you do. And at the end of the day, it's not that they're wanting to work with your services. They want to work with who you are. They like you.
Right.
And you have to give them a chance to like you by showing them who you are.
Right. I suppose I would make the little linguistic distinction for myself, for the way I would say it is not so much selling who we are, but we're sharing who we are.
Yes.
We're not trying to convince somebody to like us.
Right.
But if you don't share who you are, how are they going to know? If you can't reveal yourself a little bit in your philosophy, your point of view, how you see the world, what you're into, we're back to the faceless corporations, but the smaller scale. Great. It's the faceless corporation of one. But
right.
But that doesn't make sense to me. Yeah, like somebody, if you're famous already, you're already known for something, you can get away with a lot of stuff. But yeah, if you're not, it's just a good question to ask before I guess you start on social media. Are you famous? No? Okay.
Are you famous?
This is a different strategy on like the dendritic tree.
Well, the are you famous question is good on a lot of levels, because another thing that gets in the way is perfectionism, that people are like, well, what if I say this controversial thing and I get canceled? I'm like, no one's going to remember because you're not famous. No one's going to be like, you said this thing and that was your statement for all of womankind and now you're out of here. Nobody cares.
Right.
And I think that we were talking about rest before. My teacher was just getting on to me the other day because she thinks I'm full of hubris because I want to make this like big difference. But it is kind of like we are insignificant. And it's really important to remember that. And it's actually really fruitful to remember that, because if you think that you are the most important, or that people even care about what you're posting as much as you care, it's going to stop you from doing things. The perfectionism is going to get in the way of just being out there and just being yourself. And the are you famous question is actually a really important question on a number of levels, because I think it gets in people's way.
Yeah, that's